Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You heard the legal eagles on the other side, but now let's open up the debate. And the legitimate question on the Newshour is just one tonight. Does NCB, the Narcotics Control Bureau, need to rethink its modus operandi? That's the question and the debate. And joining me tonight, Advocate Aarti Sathe, spokesperson of the BJP, Ishkaran Bhandari, advocate, Aman Sinha, senior advocate, Arima Sundaram, senior advocate, Sanjay Hegde, senior advocate, and to first, marketing guru Suhail Seth is whom my question goes to. Suhail Seth, legal arguments on one side, but I want to ask you, do people have to go through this because of the law, the NDPS law, which at this moment at least seems draconian to many people, even though people are looking at the drug menace which needs to be controlled at the society, or the working of the NCB, which can pick up and not go through a process through which holes have been poked by the legal team of Aryan Khan, after which the bail was granted today. Where do we go from here as far as the NCB is concerned?
I think it's a larger question. You've got eminent lawyers like Arima, Sanjay, Ishkaran, Aarti. These are experts on the law, but as a common man, I have only three things to say. Number one, Niti and Nyay, there's a difference. Amartya Sen writes in his book, The Idea of Justice, that by going to a court of law, it's not necessarily that you get justice. Justice is ultimate about fairness. And ultimately about fairness, if that is what justice is, then what happened in this case and what happens in a multitude of cases is not justice. Number two, as you rightly said, it's not about the law, it's about the painful process that people have to go through. Not just Aryan. I think a brilliant comment was made on Twitter today by someone saying that what about the millions who are languishing in jail as under trials? The third is, I think the government, the judiciary and the bar need to collaborate and find a solution whereby you are given justice swiftly. You know, to be in prison for 26 days for these people, because this is a high profile case, so everybody knows about that. But what about the millions who are languishing, who we don't know about, Navika? To my mind, this is a fit opportunity for channels like yours to actually highlight the issues of painful processes qua our judiciary. No one is casting an aspersion. I think what Justice Nitin Sambre did, working beyond the hours of court-appointed office hours, what the lawyers are doing is remarkable. But the fact is, it's this far and no further. The reality is we are still living in a very painful judicial, tight hold, which needs to be gotten rid of. As far as the NCB is concerned, I think the NCB has not done itself any favor. It didn't do itself a favor last year when it picked up Riya Chakravarti and her brother Shauvik. No charges have been framed. People have been put in prison, and post that, charges have not yet been made. The same thing happened here. Now there's a controversy around Mr. Wankhede. The point is, we are surreptitiously or overtly weakening every institution of ours. Today, if you're casting aspersions on a Wankhede, you're actually casting aspersions on an organization that is committed to rid India of its drug menace. How far do you think the average Indian will go in believing that these institutions will deliver, that these institutions are honest, and these institutions are transparent? As was said,
very rightly said, and I want to get in Arima Sundaram on this.
Caesar's wife has got to be above suspicion.
True. Arima Sundaram, the question I want to ask you is, on the one hand, there is a political slugfest. On the other, the very procedures of the NCB. While, of course, nobody wants institutions, to be undermined. Nobody wants an officer of an institution to be dragged through the mud by political parties. We don't want that. But at the same time, what happens in a case like Aryan Khan, where questions are being asked now, nothing recovered from him, his phone confiscated, no due process followed, chats leaked, chats leaked and chats, which can create an impression in the outside world when they are actually 2 or 3-year-old chats, and the fact that a conspiracy charge is made, as if an individual who's under arrest and is accused knows what is going on to other party goers, because this can happen to you, me, our children, to anybody in this world, and there has to be a debate on how institutions, to keep their credibility, also conduct themselves. Isn't that the larger question tonight?
You're absolutely right, Navika. In fact, when somebody told me that it was a big victory for Aryan Khan today, I said, what do you mean it's a victory? The man's been in jail for 26 years, 26 days. It's hardly a victory. It's rather a failure. It's rather a failure of the justice dispensation system. It's rather a failure of a statutory organization which is meant to be fair and upright and do the correct thing. I mean, here is a case where this man ought to have been given bail on day one. Assume he's a consumer. Even if he's a consumer, he ought to be given bail. Now, here's a so-called consumer on which no drugs have been found. Because of his knowledge that one of his friends had drugs in his shoe, he becomes in constructive possession. I mean, how far can you go? And you're dealing you're dealing with drugs which are, for the greater part in most parts of the world, not even considered illegal. Now, this is a situation where I feel the system has failed. So I don't think it's a victory at all for Aryan Khan. I think it's a failure. It's a failure that for 26 days he had to be in jail. And who is to blame for it? It is the entire system. The entire system, starting with the NCB, starting with then going on to our justice dispensation system, then starting with the rules of bail, then going on to the statute itself, which seems to be very unclear as to where it would involve incarceration without bail, where it will not, what amounts to consumption, what amounts to possession, what amounts to possession of commercial quantity. There is so much at large here. I think it's about time that we take these things on and understand that, look here, bail is the rule, jail is an exception. Where have we forgotten those mantras which are the basis of jurisprudence? That bail is the rule, jail is an exception. I mean, here, we go on the basis that jail is the rule. And if you get a bail after 26 days, you're thumping your chest and saying, what a victory. I mean, did anyone stop to say, why was he in jail for 26 days? So you are absolutely right. Something has to be done. And as Suhail said, there's something where the entire system ought to be cleansed. There's certainly something very rotten in the state of Denmark. And I must say, without a single bit of doubt, that I think a case like this, because it's high profile, at least brings to light what many other people are suffering. But because they're not such well-known characters, it does not come out in the public eye. So I'm glad in a way
absolutely,
that this
countless other nameless, faceless people may be suffering due to possibly the law, which is draconian, possibly due to mishandling of these issues, possibly due to overreach of institutions. We don't know. And Advocate Aarti Sathe, I want to ask you this. When do we decide when cases are looked at legally, and when they cross the line of just a legal issue and get into the political domain? Because many people today believe that because of this political slugfest between the Maharashtra government and the BJP, agencies are either being overzealous or there is political interference, or just possibly settling of scores politically between the Maharashtra government and, political parties. The question here is, do normal, common people, okay, in this case, he may be a high-profile celebrity child, but the fact is that he's a normal, common person who is not a politician. Where do these kind of people go when they are caught in the crossfire?
I think one needs to step back here and see really when this whole political so-called slugfest started. In fact, I have been consistently telling in my debates from day one that the way the state government of the day in Maharashtra has really conducted itself insofar as these proceedings were concerned was really a sad state of affairs. No restraint was shown, and we, BJP, consistently said that by demoralizing these institutions which are carrying out their jobs, now whether it was done in a manner rightly or wrongly was what the courts were to decide, and the High Court has decided will come out with a detailed decision tomorrow. But we consistently said that by bringing out false allegations against, or false or true or untrue allegations against Mr. Wankhede, again constantly interfering in the process of investigation, the way Mr. Nawab Malik went on and on about it, clearly well, we consistently supported the way the legal system should go on. We said let the trial go on, let the investigation go on. Do not interfere with what the NCB is doing. But unfortunately, the state government showed no restraint. And it is when the state government did not show any restraint, that is when we as a responsible central government had to step in. In fact, I have gone ahead to even say that, look, in such a situation where NCB is really trying to handle a drug menace situation, there should be complete state-center cooperation. But the state failed us completely. And that's when the political slugfest started, unfortunately, where it should not have started. So I think the common man should still not lose faith in the judiciary. As pointed out by our learned panelist, Mr. Sundaram, that we actually need to take a close look as to if the systems are failing or if they have failed, or some change has to be brought about. These situations will help us bring about the change. But we as a BJP did not interfere at all ever in the investigative process. I hope state government would have shown the maturity and restraint.
Well, Sanjay Hegde, you think it's as simple as that?
I don't want to get into the politics of it, but at the end of the day, today is another lesson that the NCB and other police agencies need to learn. That at the end of the day, they are creatures of the law. They have to abide by the law. The NCB had the Supreme Court judgment in Tufan Singh that said that any admissions to an NCB official were not evidence. You could not rely on them. The NCB knew what was the procedure insofar as seizure of phones, Panchnamas were concerned. The NCB knew that Panchnama witnesses had to be independent. The NCB knew the entire law, but just sidelined it, all because the officer concerned possibly wanted publicity, this is the kindest that can be said about the officer, or had a sense of great power when he could arrest anybody, irrespective of who that person was or what that person had done. If an officer determines that, irrespective of whether you have drugs or don't have drugs, I am still going to rope you in. In my book, jail is the rule and bail the courts may or may not give. And I am going to throw out everything, the kitchen, the dirty water and the kitchen sink and everything at you and hope that some mud sticks. That is not exactly how you do not conduct an investigation. The NCB's mandate is big drug cartels. When you individualize it, when you associate the entire NCB with one particular officer, or its success with its ability to keep one person in jail or for how long, then you've lost your mandate. You have not gone by the law. You have lost the trust of the people. And that is where the NCB now needs to really introspect, put in systems in place against prosecutorial malevolence, and see to it that it sticks to going after the big fish and not just simply going after trophy victims.
Very well put, Aman Sinha. That's the question I want to ask you. We are talking about larger questions, but there was an ugly scene, and even today, an officer's family, going, meeting BJP leaders. There is another political party on the other side of the aisle which is trading charges. Nawab Malik tweets, picture abhi baki hai mere dost. It is open political baiting that's going on this case. You know, today it's possibly Aryan Khan. He can get the best lawyers. His case is under public scrutiny, and after 25 days we are calling it a victory when it should have been its right. But at the same time, the political overtones are so overstated in this case that common people would actually get scared of the manner in which institutions, police institutions and the Narcotics Control Bureau do their overreach. Where are the common people going to go? I mean, our objective is similar. We want drugs to be uprooted from the society. It's not a good thing to have drugs, you know, flowing thick and fast in the society. But is this the way in which we control it? That's the question people are asking.
Navika, first of all, let me say that even the accused counsels have not attributed any allegations upon the officer or accusations of politicization, etc. We just heard Mukul Rohtgi speaking to you, and there was no such allegation which was made. So this is where it rests with respect to this particular case. Now, as far as today's order is concerned, the bail applications have indeed been allowed, Navika. However, we are still awaiting a copy of the order, which is likely to be issued tomorrow. Now, we cannot possibly speculate on the reasons for allowing the bail applications. Clearly, it seems that the High Court has not agreed with the theory of conscious possession or maybe even conspiracy charges. However, it cannot be said with certainty. We'll have to wait for the final order sheet to come tomorrow.
Then, we have the lawyer who was representing Aryan Khan, Ruby Singh Ahuja of Ryan Karanjawala and Company, joining us live on the Newshour. Ruby Singh Ahuja, we've seen your pictures now on social media with Shah Rukh Khan. Aman Sinha here, of course, says difficult to mention or even talk about the grounds on which the bail was granted. Ruby, I want to ask you, as far as legal arguments are concerned, what do you think was the turning point when the Bombay High Court agreed to give bail to Aryan Khan?
You know, Navika, it's very difficult, to be candid with you, to give a turning point while you're making an argument, because you do make all the arguments available to you in any case, and this case was no different. But yes, I think Mr. Rohtgi did make the argument that there was no conscious possession, and there is no, even on a prima facie, there is no case of conspiracy. So that is why, that was one reason. I think I cannot be sure, because I have, the reasons have not come. But this was our main argument. So anything, if prima facie also no case is was made out against the accused. So that was the most important argument we have made, and we had emphasized it. But as I say, that there is never one argument which, which turns, you make all the arguments available to you, but rest we will have to wait for the order to come.
Well, Ruby Ahuja, many people today, including Mr. Aryama Sundaram and Suhail Seth, who are on the panel, have asked this question, that we are celebrating that, yes, Aryan Khan has got victory, Aryan Khan has got victory, but the fact really is that the young man has been in jail for 25 days, and it's 25 days too many, according to them, because bail is the norm and jail is the exception. At this point, do you think there is a need to relook at overreach of institutions which implement these laws, or do you think there is need to look at the law itself, which may be too draconian to make people, suffer despite procedures not being followed by institutions?
Well, certainly I do feel that somewhere along the lines we have deviated from the rule that, bail should be the law and jail is an exception. That I have seen has been happening but as far as I think the problem comes the implementation. So when the criminal law is set into motion, I think one must see that at least because when you take life and liberty, it needs to be seriously done, just because you feel, sometimes you feel that, there is you do it for you feel that there is a case like this which is not even prima facie maintainable. There is the problem. So I think implementation is the problem. I don't think so the laws have to be seen. I think the authorities or investigating authorities should see that when they are setting criminal law into motion and, even arresting somebody, on what substance, on what charges, there I feel there is where we need to have a relook. I mean, law is what it is. It is not that, all laws are bad. I won't say that. But I think the interpretation, the implementation, we have to do a relook to that. And I think when it comes to matters of life and liberty, a more serious approach should be taken, because there are many, we know many, who are sometimes, in jail and waiting for their bail matters, and also that is a problem. So if because of the time, constraints on our system, because of many reasons, sometimes you do not, you can't find a proper hearing and all that, or date for a hearing. So that is why before you arrest somebody, it needs to be seriously interpreted. The charges have to be seen. So if you prima facie also somebody can see that no charge is made out, then why to arrest?
Well, very good point made. I know Suhail Seth is raising his hand. Ishkaran Bhandari also on standby. I'm coming to you, Ishkaran. But before I let Ruby go, Ruby, I want to just ask you, as a lawyer who's handled several high-profile cases, do you think handling a celebrity of this kind, Shah Rukh Khan and Shah Rukh Khan's son, puts pressures on the legal team as well, on you? On a personal note, I want to ask you that question.
No, I don't think so. Every case, when you do a case in court, and that is true for every lawyer. Sorry, Suhail?
No, Suhail will wait.
I said
complete
she's
your
tough
point.
as steel.
Sorry. Yes, Suhail, what are you saying to Ruby?
I said she's tough as steel.
Are you as tough as steel, as Suhail said, or does it create pressures of its own kind, handling celebrity cases?
No, I think every case has its own pressure and should have its own pressure, according to me. I do not believe in this, that cases, when you do a case, you should not be under pressure. You should be under pressure, because I sometimes believe pressure brings the best in you.
Okay.
That's my belief.
Ishkaran Bhandari, do you think NCB needs to relook, as Ruby has pointed out, that implementation of the law and the overreach of the law is something that should be looked at? Because, it's easy to arrest, but redressal, charges, etc. need to be looked at more seriously?
Navika, there are multiple questions which have risen in this case. One is, do we have draconian laws? But then the wider question would be, is this the only draconian law? There are multiple laws in India where a private person could make a complaint and you could be in jail based on what that person says. And that is a private person. I don't want to take the names because some lobby or the other will get after my life, but we all know the laws which exist in which a private person's complaint will get you in jail. Second aspect of this is this the only case where bail should be a rule and jail should be an exception? That is very true, but talk to lakhs of under trials. I, for one, believe we need liberal bail laws in this country. But this case has highlighted the aspect, which is that, especially in the lower courts, it's not so easy to get bail. And the third aspect is, I put it in a slightly different manner. Supposing the first day, Arbaz merchant and Mr. Aryan Khan had come together, one had a drug recovered from him, and NCB had not arrested. Perhaps you as media would be asking questions, is NCB letting influential people go off scot-free?
Yes.
So in a case which involves prominent people, the media will ask questions from both ends. And I think the system has gotten used to it. The courts are used to it. The lawyers are used to it.
Well, then I think the conclusion of the debate tonight is only one, that it is the media at fault. If prominent people get arrested, it's the media at fault. If prominent people don't get arrested, it is the media at fault. Well, ठीक है, कटघरे में हैं हम. हमें भी lawyers की ज़रूरत है, and hopefully Arima Sundaram, Aman Sinha, Ishkaran, yourself, Sanjay Hegde, advocate Aarti Sathe, and Ruby Singh Ahuja, you will also fight for our cause, because it seems every time the villain is the media. Well, I don't accept it for one. The question here is that questions will be raised. Nobody, just as lawyers say that for them every case is important, for the media also every case is important. We will put out the truth as it is. We will raise questions when there are questions to be raised, and we will fight for justice whenever there is the need to fight for justice, be it a celebrity, be it a common man. That's what the media's role as a watchdog is. Well, that's where we'll end the debate today, but clearly this opens up many more questions, not just for institutions, but also for the judiciary, and also for the overreach and hurting the liberty of people, which is guaranteed to them under the Constitution. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining me on the News Hour tonight.